Hello everyone, my name is JS Matthews and welcome back to Writing and Role-Playing. Today I'm going to be teaching you how to make some really awesome looking two-sided Ultimate Dungeon terrain. Now if you're not familiar with Ultimate Dungeon Terrain or UDT, it was created by Professor Dungeon Master on the Dungeon Craft channel. I'll put a link to his videos in the description. But the idea is you're just creating a stage for your players. And he kind of created a couple different versions of it. I like his first version that kind of is just gridless play, and it's almost like having a battle mat that's very versatile, and that's kind of the look that I'm going for here. Now as you can see, my two sides are going to be a tavern floor and then sort of a grimy, disgusting sewer. And I've been wanting to do this for a while. I need, a nice little tavern floor area for my players. And then I was like, hey, what the heck? I really want a nice slimy sewer. And the good thing about the sewer one is it really works with both my zombie TTRPGs and my fantasy ones. So let's go ahead and jump in here and I will show you how I make these awesome crafts. Now the first step here is I started marking off just 1 inch on each side here, just every single inch, just marking them down. And this is to do the wood side for the tavern floor. Now 1 inch might be a little big. If I were to redo this, I might make it 1/2 inch, to be honest, instead of a full inch. It turns out great, but I think the floorboards would have looked a little more to scale with the 28mm miniatures that I use. But honestly, I'm not too worried about it. What you're going to realize is I'm not very picky about my crafting. For me, if it makes my players go, oh, that's cool, I'm good to go. I'm fine with it. I'm not Jeremy from Black Magic Craft. I don't put that much effort in, or I think there's Tabletop Witchcraft is another one where, man, some of the stuff they make is just insane, and it's so accurate and to scale, and me, I'm like, yeah, no, I don't really want to do the math. Listen, I'm not a math teacher, okay? I'm a history teacher, and I care far more about that. One of the things I also did here is you can see I've actually made a marking on a little stick there of 1 inch, and I was able to just kind of space it across and then just draw my lines, and that really helped me move through this a little quicker than just marking it with those 1 inch lines. Then what I did was I kind of went through and just kind of marked off where I wanted my beams. You could see those little cross sections, and then I just widened them and made them look really nice with that pen. And again, it doesn't really matter what pen you use, as long as it's as long as it's going to make the lines a little wider, you're good to go. And then I do these little indentations here. This is kind of to mark almost like where there's nail holes, and it really adds a lot of character. Seriously, don't underestimate this. This is what changes it from looking like just a stack of boards to like a floor. And it's a very quick little detail. It doesn't take a lot of time, and look at how much that adds. Makes it look really good. Now this right here is a little sculpting tool, and what I do is I use kind of the, not the little pointy side, but kind of the other side there, and all I do is just kind of trace in some lines here and just put in that wood grain. And I did this for every single board. Honestly, it actually didn't take as long as you may think, especially once you start going. It just kind of happens. And I mean, heck, you could throw on a YouTube video, hey, maybe even binge some writing and role-playing videos while you're going. I think that'd be a great idea. But it's pretty quick there. And by the end, man, it looks really good. I got a good looking floor, and it was exactly what I was looking for. I think it really did turn out great. I love those little nail holes. I think that added a lot. And I would definitely do things like this again. Maybe some smaller boards, but overall I was happy with it. Now this is a mixture of Mod Podge and black paint. Mod Podge is almost like a glue, a waterproof glue that really gives you I guess a very firm and durable surface to play on. And so I just kind of poured this on here. Honestly, I added a little bit too much, but who cares? That's okay. I mean, it's black paint and Mod Podge. It's not that big of a deal. And all I did was just start spreading it around, and I probably should have used a bigger brush, but I figured that out later when I do my other side. But all we do is just spread that out across the whole thing. Don't get too worried if it starts to puddle a little bit. Just kind of drag your paintbrush over it and pull on it, and just kind of get some of those out of the way. I actually end up pulling some of it off and just kind of putting it back into the jar as best I can with that paintbrush. But, just kind of be watching for those high areas. You don't want to be covering up too much of your detail. Here's how it looked when it was done. A nice black color to paint on here. Now, next thing I did was I just grabbed some orange and brown and mixed them. Definitely a lot more brown than orange, but I really wanted a warm undercoat. And again, you have the black underneath there, so it's really going to dampen down the brightness. But for that base color, I was okay with it being a little bit darker. You can also tell some of that black still hadn't dried, so my paint actually kind of mixes with it a little bit. It's almost like a little bit of wet blending, and honestly, it turned out great. I was really happy with that, because when you get these wood tones, you want a little bit of variation. Wood doesn't look the same color all the way through all the time. You get a little bit of subtle variations, darks, lights, and so that kind of wet blending actually ended up being really good. You can tell I went back in here and just thought, well, it's a little too dark for me. I'm just going to add a little more on there. And again, you can always add a little more, but it's hard to take paint off. So just kind of keep that in mind. And again, just use a nice big brush and just kind of brush it on there. Now, I had the idea of trying to wet blend in some lighter colors, so I actually added some yellow in, and it looked okay, but because they weren't blending as well as I wanted them to, I actually ended up not doing this through the whole thing. I instead did it. I waited till it dried and did the rest of it, so I only did about half of it. And you can kind of see the side I did there on the left. I fix it later on, but what I did really was I tried to keep to the middle of the boards. That's the best way to do that, to add that little lighter color. Once I did that throughout the whole board, once it was dry, I did a lot of dry brushing. You can see there just a little bit of tan just to lighten it up, and I thought that looked really good. But the next thing I did then after that was give it a black wash to kind of dampen everything down and tie all those colors together. And now this is where you start seeing it really come together. Those little holes get filled in with the black, and this is the final result. I think it turned out awesome. I thought it looked so darn good, and honestly, it looked better than I ever thought. I'm definitely going to be using this painting technique when I paint wood from now on, because that looks like a real fancy floor. Now for our second side, and this is the one I think everybody's been waiting for. We're going to be doing our sewer terrain. Now, as you can see, it's just the other side of the wood there. I actually kind of started it about halfway through with that wood side, and all I did was I actually measured about 4 inches from the center, 2 inches on either side, and did it in 3 sections. And so I have a full, almost half section up top, and then 2 kind of corner sections, and just 4 inches cut out in between them. And that was just another same-sized piece of XPS foam. And then I just glued them on and weighed them down. I didn't use any toothpicks or anything like that. I just decided to just use basic glue. I knew I was going to be putting layers of Mod Podge and all sorts of stuff on there. But the next thing I decided to do was give them kind of like an outline of some bricks. So I measure about a ½ inch away from the edge there on each of them, and just about a ½ inch there. Didn't matter where it was on the thing as long as it was a ½ inch. And then I just traced that line using my level as a nice straight edge. And yeah, I got my outline for my bricks. And I already kind of had this planned out. I usually plan things out ahead of time. Maybe I'll do a video someday showing you my planning notebook that I use. But what I did here is just kind of carved out each of those little bricks there, and I just thought it'd be kind of cool to have a little outline. And then I do some smaller bricks in the other areas. But this was real quick, real easy, and man, it adds a lot of character. And this is the part of the craft that I really like, because it all just starts coming together. You start seeing the little things you're doing, and you start seeing what's going to happen, and it just, oh man, it makes me excited. I love it. Now this little guy right here was from my 3D printer. I 3D printed a nice little texture roller. I got this from Thingiverse. If I can find the link to the download I did, I'll put that in the description. But check this out. Hours and hours of work that would have taken using a pencil or a pen or cutting up little bricks. Instead, I rolled this thing out in just a few minutes. Now, I will say, if I do this again, I'm wearing gloves because, man, my fingers and my hands, I was pushing real hard there. And by the end, I was like, hey, my fingers have some really nice indentations into them. I'd probably use some gloves next time. But here's how it looked by the end. Really great texture. And I mean, I wished it was a little deeper. I went back through, you could see with the pen, and just kind of marked up a few areas, not many, but just to kind of give a little variation. Once I painted it, you'd see some deeper textures. And overall, though, man, it looked great. I love this thing. I'm definitely going to print some more of these. I'm going to print some cobblestone ones and do some, maybe we'll do some pathways, stuff like that. But man, these, I can see endless uses for these. We can do some stone walls using some other foam. Yeah, this is endless usage. And man, it's so easy and so fast. I just turned on the printer, let it print for about 4 hours, grabbed it out, cleaned it up, and bam, I was good to go. And now I have it forever. I can just roll out as many bricks as I want. So great tool there. Probably one of my favorite parts of this craft. Now, the next thing I did was I wanted some grates for the sewer floors, you know, water kind of pouring out of them. And I had the idea of putting some pipes in as well. And so I started with the grates. I just kind of, I was going to use some granny grating. You're going to see I do something a little different, actually. But I first started by just outlining them with a pen and then cutting them out with a X-Acto knife, pretty easy there. All I did was just kind of scored around it, and then I cut little lines across, you know, just kind of making little squares, and then I grabbed my little tool there. That's a sculpting tool for clay, and I just popped that out. I got a whole set of sculpting tools for $7 on Amazon. Super cheap and definitely worth it. Once you start collecting these little tools, man, they're really helpful. You see, you just scoop it out, clean it up, and you got yourself a nice little square hole there. Looks really good. Now, I decided I realized, hey, I have a 3D printer. Why don't I just 3D print some stuff? So I actually 3D printed a grate and some tiles there, and then these nice pipes to go in the side. So I just did the same thing with my X-Acto knife, just kind of cut a little hole in it and, you know, fit it in there. And yeah, we're going to glue those in. I think they're going to look really good. Now, I had to widen these a little bit, so all I did was just cut around the outside, and then I kind of shoved my knife in like flat, you know, horizontally like this, and just kind of slid it around a little bit, and then it just pops right out. Perfect. Very easy. Just check it, slide the grate in, and look how good that's going to look. Once I started sliding those in, man, I was getting excited. Here we are putting the black paint and Mod Podge on again, get that nice layer of protection on there, and it's going to give us a really nice primer to paint on. Again, you can see what I did with those bricks. I outlined some of them with my pen. I just went around and just outlined them a little bit here and there. Again, I just threw on some videos. I think I was watching Dungeon Craft. If you haven't watched Dungeon Craft, by the way, I would highly encourage you to do that. It's probably the best D&D channel on YouTube. Not an opinion, totally a fact. I'm a complete sucker for that channel. It's what inspired me to make my channel. Yeah, go check them out. Anyways, here's our sewer stuff. I spray painted them with a nice little chrome there, and then I started stippling on some dark brown. So I mixed a little bit of brown with black and just stipple it on. Right, you see me, I'm not really painting it, I'm stippling it, just jamming it on there. And make sure you get that dark color first. Then I took some brown and added a bunch of orange to it, kind of lighten it up a little bit, and now I brush it over. And with those pipes, you can see I get real aggressive. I start realizing, man, these are in a sewer. They need to be grimy and nasty and gross. And if it's metal, I mean, that thing's gonna be corroded like crazy, just rusted. And so then I took another layer and just added in tons of orange to it. It's almost pure orange now, a little bit of brown, and just kind of do the same thing. Just, again, get inside those pipes, really drag it around. I even do another layer of pure orange and just stipple it on there. And this is the final result. I think it looks great. I watched a couple videos on how to paint rust, and they were really helpful. Just start with that dark brown, work your way up, and look at those pipes. Oh man, they look nasty. That great, like that bright orange of the rust, it looks awesome. Turned out really well. Now we're going to paint this up. This is a little bit of a different paint job than the wood. I add the brown and orange first, but then I add a bunch of red to that. Again, I wanted kind of some very warm tones because I knew I was going to black wash it and then do a couple other things with it, but I wanted to start with almost like an orangish, reddish brown and just kind of get that on everywhere. Now, to be honest, I probably should have used a bigger brush, but that's okay. I bought a dollar store brush and just kind of, again, slather that paint on. You're going to see that I actually don't do it as much here at the beginning, and you'll see later in this little painting area, I'm going to really start putting more on. I actually come back to that area and add more, and I realize I'm going to get the black wash on there. It's going to be fine. And I really just layer that stuff on there and get a good layer of that orange and brown down to really emphasize those bricks. Now, as you can see here, obviously, when we finished, I actually painted the gray in as well. I forgot to get that on camera. There was a couple times where I thought I was recording and I just wasn't, so oh well, that's all right. But I really love those colors. That gray really brings out the orange. And then I decided I really wanted to emphasize individual bricks, so I went in and I just kind of painted them with a brighter red or orange, you know, a tan in there. And again, with that black wash, it's going to tie all of it together. They won't stand out that much, but I really like that. I think that added a lot of character. And here's the black wash. I always do this in my garage because I don't like it dripping on my table, but you can see how that black wash just sinks into there, those little crevices. The black wash is just water, black paint, and a tiny bit of dish soap. If you really need it, you can head over to Jeremy at Black Magic Craft. Black Magic Craft is the YouTube channel, and he's the one who did the recipe for that. I think that was his. And yeah, next thing up is a dry brush. Just a little bit of tan here, not a ton. On the video, it actually looks a little heavier than I meant it to be on in real life, it was very subtle. You know, sometimes the camera brings out the changes in light and dark a little more, but I knew I was going to be doing some more washes coming up, and I wasn't too worried about it. But there's what it looks like with that dry brush. I tried to leave the middles, as you can tell, a little darker to kind of make it look like they were lower in the water. I thought that was kind of a cool little effect, and you'll see it actually does pay off. Now this next thing I did forget to record. I thought I was recording it and I didn't, but take a look at that. These were some effects I was adding in. Look how grimy and slimy and nasty that looks. Man, I don't think it could have turned out better. All that is some PVA glue, a lot of water, and this green flocking that I had. And I just dumped it in there, mixed it around, and just started slathering it on everywhere. And that just, you can see the sewer comes to life. All this nasty algae and growth. Oh my gosh, look at that still picture. I love it. I loved the way it looked, and it just looked so nasty. Just perfect. And here we're going to glue in the grates finally. And I realized this is the time to do it now that I got all the green stuff on there, all the nasty algae and stuff. And again, we just throw down a little PVA glue, and then I just slap down those grates that I 3D printed and painted up. And you can really start seeing this sewer come to life. It really starts coming together. And honestly, this is when I was getting excited. I really think this is the best thing I've made thus far. I was really proud of it. And I just, oh man, it turned out so great. And when you get to that point where things just come together, man, it just motivates you to keep going. And I've always loved that part about projects. When things come together and you start seeing all your hard work, you know, all those little things paying off. I also went back and 3D printed some rubble to go in the sewer system there, and I 3D printed these from Thingiverse again, just found them online, a couple piles of rubble, and then I got 2 piles of like these rocks and bones, and then I painted those guys up. Again, I thought I was painting them, but I wasn't, but that's okay, that's alright, we're good. And I just started kind of filling in the areas. I put the rubble areas near where I didn't have the pipes. I thought that looked kind of cool, like, you know, maybe some nasty stuff washing down, weren't caught by the grates or anything. And yeah, it was looking pretty good. The tape right here is for our resin pour. We are prepping for that. Now, resin is so easy to work with. I found I was really intimidated by it first, but this is the most intimidating part. You gotta get a good seal. As long as you get a good seal, things will be fine. Now, this right here I want to show you. I thought I screwed up my entire thing here. I mixed some glossy Mod Podge with that water and the flocking again, and I just wanted to do almost like make it look like it was wet. And I thought it was going to turn out terribly, but you'll see it dries and it looks fine. And next up is, of course, the best part, the resin pour. I don't know why I love resin pours so much. They are just so soothing. I don't know what it is about them, but this is a 2-part epoxy resin, and it's got a hardener and then the actual resin. So what I did was I mixed a little bit of brown into the actual resin here, and you're going to see I add a lot more. I pour in some Drakenhof Nightshade. These are just washes, and then I pour in a bunch of this Army Painter green, what is it, green shade? Yeah, and then I add in the hardener, and then I just start mixing. And you're going to see here, I wanted to make this water grimy. I wanted this nasty. I mean, it's a sewer. There's all sorts of nasty stuff down there. So I pour in a bunch more of this Agrex Earth shade that I had. I was almost out of that bottle, and I bought a new one. So I was like, yeah, heck, why not? Just add a little more in there. And then you got to give it a thorough mix. If you've never worked with resin before, again, watch a video on it or two, and they'll teach you all the ins and outs. I learned a lot, and it's so easy. It's intimidating at first, but man, look at the results. Look at that pour. Oh, there's nothing like it. I love pouring that resin in. It just really is a good finishing touch to the project. And again, don't be too intimidated by it. Go ahead and try things. I think this is one of the best things I've learned from crafting is don't be afraid to try something new. It's okay if you mess up. If you never try something, you know, you're going to be missing out. If you never try something because you're intimidated by it, don't let that happen. Go ahead and do your best, try it out and see what happens. Here I am taking some of that resin and spreading it around kind of those grates, the upper areas, just to give it some puddles. And you're going to see this is actually one of the better decisions I made on this one. It really brings that upper area to life. Like there's water dripping down from above and just sliding down into those grates. And yeah, I just kind of threw it, not on everyone, but on quite a few of them. And just kind of mashed it in there and, you know, did some thinner layers and thicker layers. And Yeah, resin is just a blast to work with. Again, really fun. Here's how it looked right after I poured it. Now, what you do have to do is take a lighter, or I have like one of those little, you know, those like long-handled lighters, and just go over it after about 10 minutes and pop the bubbles. Just move it over the top slowly and it'll pop all the bubbles. Just be a little careful not to burn your foam. I didn't have any issues with it. But here's how it looked after it dried. Man, I was real happy about that. This turned out awesome. And again, I love just the slick look of resin. It really just pulls everything together and really separates the two levels. And I'm excited for my players to get on this. I think they're gonna love what this looks like. But again, we are in a sewer. It's not supposed to be a mirror, crystal clear water. Instead, we're gonna add some ripple effects, and these are super easy. I got this from Luke Towan, his YouTube channel. I think that's what it's called. I think it's just Luke Towan, and he does model railroad stuff. But what you do is you stipple it on a bit and get a good amount on there, not a ton. I've made that mistake before, not too much. And then you take a straw and you just blow through it, and you just aim it down, and it creates these wonderful ripple effects. Now, you do have to realize Mod Podge won't set right away, so you may have to do it a couple times. And you'll notice I'll be coming back and forth when I add new stuff in. So I'll add this new layer in, and then I'll blow down on all of it, and I'll just blow on each single part with that straw and really kind of get those little ripple effects. And I just go across everything doing that. I will tell you, it's definitely a little bit rough on the lungs there because you're breathing in all this nasty stuff. And yeah, the smell gets you a little bit. You gotta be careful. If you have an airbrush, I would use that instead. But look at the ripple effects. Oh my gosh, they look fantastic. And yeah, just brought that whole level of life that I needed to the rest of that water. And here is the final product. Man, I could not be more happy. I think this turned out great. If I were to do this again, I might try to get some way to have the water pouring out of the pipes. That's one thing I would have done. Maybe use a little hot glue and do that before I do the resin pour and then drip the resin down it. But man, I can't wait to get this in for my players. I did a quick little setup of something. You're going to actually see this in a later episode when we talk about how to make a great villain. This is just, the sewer system especially is going to be a blast. It works great for fantasy, great for what I'm using it for, which is the zombie apocalypse tabletop role-playing I'm running. I actually have a scene where my players are going to be escaping and they're going to run into a big bad villain that they tick off. Or at least we'll see how they do. Maybe they won't tick them off. We'll have to see what decisions they make. But yeah, I love the way this was all set up. I thought it looked really cool. This is kind of a little attack scene, maybe from some raiders or something. But yeah, I haven't painted these guys up yet. These aren't the Kriegs yet. They're a different group. But man, turned out great. Here's the setup on the wood sides. This is how I'd set up a tavern. I have so many minis that I still need to paint. Overall though, man, it looks awesome. I love the, just kind of the feeling of it. And again, what's great about UDT is you treat it like a play, right? You don't need walls and stuff. Maybe a few here and there would help, but all I do is throw down doors. There's my two little walls there. Hint to a future video. And you just throw down a door and maybe throw down something to separate it, and you can see there's a separated room there. Okay, so there's the bar, and then the bartender can walk back into that back storage room. Maybe there's something back there, who knows. And then I have a couple other doors back here with two rooms, and I separate the rooms using some bookcases. Just throw those in there and you can tell that's a wall. Let your players use their imagination and fill in the spots. That's what makes UDT just so fantastic. Anyways, thank you guys so much for joining me for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I think this is one of the best crafts I've made, and I was really excited to share it with you. If you enjoyed this, please leave a like and maybe even subscribe. It really motivates me to help make more videos, and it's just nice to hear people enjoying your work. Anyways, thanks again for checking them out. I hope to see you in later ones. I got a lot of stuff coming your way. I got more on my books, and I got a couple fun little DM tips that I'm going to share with you. I'm also going to start sharing with you my own role-playing systems that I use, because I'm not a big fan of D&D's role-playing system, and I want to do a couple videos on that. So anyways, thank you guys again. You have no idea how much I appreciate you checking out my videos. Leave a comment if you liked this, and hopefully I will see you in the next episode, and good luck with all your writing and role-playing. Have a good one, guys.